There's no way Thunderbolts is that good. Well, it is. The latest entry to the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a weirdly fascinating one. Coming off the failure of whatever Captain America 4 was, I was kind of skeptical of where they'd go. In the past, to move on from the Infinity Saga set of films, they needed a jolt. And there were really only two ways of where these movies could go. Either give competent filmmakers more leeway to make these films, which resulted in middling successes of Eternals and Thor Love and Thunder, and there were a lot of factors that led to the downfall of those movies, but you kind of catch my drift, or double down with references, Reddit-esque jokes, and nostalgia, which was the way that Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine went, both of which are the biggest films since Avengers Endgame in 2019. And with Avengers Doomsday seemingly following that latter option, I was really not that excited. What did intrigue me though were the two films coming out before that, one of which was Thunderbolts. Directed by Jake Schreier, who was one of the creators of the hit Netflix series Beef, one of the few pieces of marketing that caught my eye in the run-up to its release was this trailer, showcasing the talent behind the film. And that talent is really strong, from the writers of The Beef, to the composers of Everything Everywhere All at Once, to the cinematographer of The Green Knight. It was kind of really impressive to see this much creative talent in such a commercialized, machine-backed Hollywood blockbuster. And wow, did it actually really work. Centered around a band of misfits, ex-government, lab experiments, and a high school state football champion, Thunderbolts is a surprisingly mature film. And don't get me wrong, there's still bits of comedy here and there, but it's not written in a way where it undercuts emotion or tension every single time. And even when it did do comedy, it was actually fairly cheeky and pretty funny. That's probably thanks to the help of Joanna Callow, who was the co-showrunner for The Bear. The movie lets its characters breathe and collect themselves between action set pieces, making the pacing feel much more fluid and natural and allowing characters to be living and breathing people, rather than just almighty beacons of superpowers, which is another strength of the movie. A lot of people, including me, believe that Marvel had pretty much become a parody of itself. Constant jokes and terrible blue screen had been ingrained in the DNA of these films, even those from the late 2010s, which are still deemed as some of the best highs of the franchise. But through that, there was always a feeling that those characters and stories had a beating heart, that they had weight, and that weight and decisiveness is pretty much what makes Thunderbolts one of the best Marvel movies ever. Like, it looks like a movie and even sounds like a movie. Like, there's contrast and shadows and color in the visuals. The score by Sun Lux is actually quite notable for a superhero movie. I mean, just listen to some of these tracks. And the characters and stories have soul. A central theme of the movie is the idea of loss and depression and how you gauge and tackle it. And this band of anti-heroes tackle it throughout the movie to try and find that answer. Hell, even the antagonist tries as well, which of course leads to the Sentry character. And this shared collectiveness gives this seemingly pieced together group of mercenaries incredible chemistry. A group of characters where, going into this, felt really flat and dull for the most part, all of a sudden had heart and knew their role within the team and the film itself. And I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted more. Those scenes where they're just blabbering with each other are really, really good and help with characterization. It's just a well-written movie, which is why it works. I'd harbor a bet that the overwhelming majority of this movie were made with decisive creative decisions. And what I mean by that is that there weren't last-minute reshoots because they couldn't land the ending quite right. There weren't last-minute VFX work making everything look dull and log-like, and that the choices made all happened in the writing and pre-production stages. Decisions made by the creatives behind the movie. I mean, just look at the BTS. A lot of it is practical and on-site and with limited blue screens. Florence herself does some of her own stunts and even falls off of a building. Everything about this movie gives a feeling of the best aspects of Marvel's highs. that being the team chemistry and heart and soul of its characters, while also managing to tackle issues not properly discussed in its filmography, such as loss and mental illness and addiction issues. Even the climax of the film is such a very different yet welcome choice that not only pushes the central themes of the story to the forefront of the film, but it's incredibly innovative for a superhero film, reminding me of the ending of, I don't know, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And that might sound crazy, but it works. Which brings me back to the trailer. You see all the titles and people working on this, and that it worked with overwhelming success, both critically and potentially even commercially. Something that hasn't been seen since James Gunn's last Guardians movie, who also had an immense amount of creative control over it. Hell, even I said at the time it's a film that Marvel needed, and that it actually needs to make more of these kinds of films that have weight, emotion, and time for VFX artists to actually make these things look good. And Thunderbolts left me wanting more, but in a good way. I actually wanted to see the story progress and see where these characters were headed. And even if the far future doesn't look too positive, in my opinion, maybe I'll eat some crow for this, in which case I, of course, welcome it. But the immediate future, though, gives me a lot more optimism.